adverse events and drugs. PRR is not doing it. Companies are getting massive amounts of data out of their databases, you know, literally thousands of signals that are turning into maybe 10 or 12 signals at the end of the day. That's a huge gap between what they thought that they were going to get from signal detection and actually what they're managing at the end of the day. What's becoming more and more important for these companies is actually the signal management workflow. So after you get thousands of signals spit out of your database from PRR, what do you actually do with them? How do you handle them? And how do you track them in a validated environment to be able to communicate back to regulators? Once again, validation is a huge thing. The business people come to you and say, we want this small little change. You're doing it in a validated environment. It's not a small little change for you. It's, you know, turning on a field or turning off a field. It seems like nothing. In a validated environment, there's a massive lot of paperwork that happens with it. So this is why companies really need to anticipate before the business process people do what the technology requirements for that are going to be. Additionally, risk management systems are something that are still kind of behind where the business process needs them to be. So companies are still really struggling to even figure out what their user requirements around safety risk management systems are. So the management of developing and compiling REMs and RMP plans, and then managing the commitments that are in there, tracking them, managing them, and attempting to quantify if those commitments are even useful for the company to keep going ahead with. So risk management systems are really the next kind of horizon for most of the technology companies to try to grasp. However, like I said, it's still a moving target. The companies don't know what they want, so by the time somebody comes to market with a technology system, it will likely be far off from what a company will actually be requiring of them. So, and ultimately, all of these systems merging into one system. We see all of these different vendors popping up all over the place. In single case handling databases, it's really Oracle and Eris that are currently in the space, and that's, you know, particularly Oracle is trying to integrate all of these systems into one. There are signal detection systems that are being marketed that aren't Eris and aren't Argus systems that are allegedly able to sit on top of a data set from Oracle and mine through your data. However, those systems actually aren't matching up. So it's becoming more and more important for companies to actually develop the system as an integrated platform to begin with, instead of trying to piece together multiple systems. So this is really where you know, most of our IT people have worked with their business people to identify where they think by 2015 their systems are going to go. Additionally, this is really what the safety risk management systems are going to kind of look like, really taking in massive lots of data, integrating them into one data set to be able to manage product risk throughout the life cycle, not only detecting signals and managing those risks, but really prioritizing them, planning them, and being able to have some kind of a dashboard feedback to the head of safety or the QPPV who needs to know this information on a daily basis. This is something that's lacking at most companies. That's kind of critical for a lot of companies to really understand. So once again, this is kind of how we're looking at the data set moving forward, how these data sets are going to have to integrate. Integrating the data sets is an incredibly complex thing for most companies to try to do, simply because these data sets don't match up. There's blinded data in there, there's duplicate data in there, and companies are really trying to get a complete view of what they're looking at for their patient safety in one database. So that would, right now, that's kind of sitting in a separate clinical database and a separate post-market database. But moving forward, it will likely integrate those two databases with some of the spontaneous post-market studies, with external data from regulators, and then actually try to match that up across things like event incidents, sales, frequency, all of that type of information to really give a good idea of exactly what's driving the signal coming out of their patient safety data, and then being able to manage that signal through a life cycle. So really being able to catch before the regulators do you have a problem with a product, and really identify when a problem is coming on with a product before the public does as well. We've seen several instances lately where there's been some products that have had major issues across an entire brand that really, the Tylenol brand has had some trouble lately because it's the entire brand that's been affected by one small subset of their products there. Really identifying those based on all of these different sets of data before those products actually have an issue in the mass media. So, and then continuously updating the risk-benefit balance across their products. So when to pull a product from the market, when to issue a black box warning, when to do some kind of urgent safety restriction across all of their product life cycles. So really managing all of those integrated data sets across all of the processes in PV to develop an overall view of what the systems are going to look like. Like I said, it's kind of anticipating where the business processes are going to go before the business processes people know where the processes are going to go. It's a balancing act because technology does take a long time to catch up with business processes, particularly in a validated environment. So keeping to what I hope is time, I don't have a watch. So if anyone has any questions or would like any of the additional papers that we've developed on the system of the future or any of the other PV tech topics that we're currently working on, please feel free to give me an email or contact Mike or Wolf as well.